welcome back to the Life and Listings podcast. Today we have Kristi joining us. Hey, Kristi.
Hello there. I'm excited to be here.
Super excited for this. For anybody that hasn't met you yet, most people might know you from the Tom Ferry ecosystem. You're on a lot of stages, you do a lot of speaking, but anybody that hasn't met you yet, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you're doing.
Yeah, so my name's Kristi Jencks. I'm a real estate agent in Gilbert, Arizona with my husband, Merrill Jencks, and I'm also a coach for Tom Ferry, which is like super fun. And I get to do a lot of really incredible things, webinars, speaking on stage. And so that comes from a lot of, one, selling real estate, which I enjoy and have fun, but two, coaching incredible agents and brokerages all over North America. And three, because I am a mom of 8. And not a lot of people can say that. I have met several other moms of 7. I haven't met another mom of 8 yet in person, but being a mom of 8 and being a working mom at that gives me a unique perspective. So I have a lot of people that come to me that are like, hey, how do you get everything done? How do you do these kind of things? And then I'm also just a little bit different. I think most agents, real estate wasn't my first career. So I bring to real estate a different perspective and a different personality. So that's probably what you need to know about me.
We need to dig into some of that. So first off, what career did you come from before real estate?
Yeah, how I ended up in Arizona is I had a friend that wanted me to be a nanny. So I actually moved to Arizona to be a nanny. And then I was doing massage therapy. So I was a massage therapist, which I've always been a yes person. So my friends, hey, do you want to move to Arizona and be my nanny? I was like, sure. That same friend, she was working for a major publisher, Houghton Mifflin, and she asked me if I wanted to sell textbooks for her. And I was like, sell textbooks? I don't know anything about textbooks. But I said yes because I'm a little adventurous. And they hired me to be a sales rep for them. I ended up running the state of New Mexico and having a ton of fun doing that. I think I had visited every single elementary school in all of Arizona and all of New Mexico, including the Bureau of Indian Education school. So I've been to every single school. I've driven every highway, freeway, dirt road where there is a school. I have visited and I have sold textbooks. And eventually my husband got into real estate and he just kept saying, I need help. Can you come work for me? And I saw what was happening with funding in education. And so I was like, maybe I should get out of this career before all the money runs out, especially in Arizona. I think at the time, were ranking like 48th for state funding for education. So I ended up leaving textbook sales and technology for school sales. And I got into real estate, and he had me be his ISA first. So I was the ISA. I did transaction coordination, which I hated. That did not last very long. I am an ID. C is one of my lower. If you follow the disc profile, C is one of my lower. I'm a true expressive driver. And so I was like, transaction coordination wasn't for me. So I've done operations on the team. I've done marketing. I basically have held every position that there can be within a team and ultimately stayed in the coaching. That's where my passion was, coaching and developing these agents to be ridiculously successful in real estate.
I love that. And I would imagine that you being down every single road and seeing every single school probably helps you in real estate, right? Because you're like, oh, yeah, I know what school that is, or I know where that is. You probably know where every single location is in the state.
I think that career taught me to think on my feet, and mainly because I was the only person that had never been a teacher. So I would do these presentations and then I would go train. So one of the things that we figured out really early on, and this has helped me in my real estate business, is that people were buying a product, they were buying a textbook, right? But they needed someone to teach them how to use it. They needed someone to be there after the sale. And honestly, that's why our business has been so successful, is because we recognized that it's what happens after the sale that keeps them coming back. So then they wouldn't just buy, say, English from me, they'd buy math from me, they'd buy social studies, they'd buy science, right? They would end up buying all of my products because they knew, hey, she's going to come back to the school, she's going to train us. And that's how a lot of our clients feel, is they know, like when we buy with Kristi and Merrill, They're not just going to be like, okay, nice seeing you. They know that we're going to follow up with them. We're going to make sure they know that they have their home warranty. We're going to make sure they have the vendors, our favorite vendors. And I think that's probably what I learned most from that career was it's what happens after the sale that truly builds that repeat and referral business.
Yep. That's really important because I think a lot of times agents just go, oh, got my commission, house is sold, here's your keys. Gosh, like the worst thing is I've seen a lot of agents be like, yeah, I just left your keys under the mat, never talk to you. Hello, like what do you do? Come on, don't do that. I think that's just so important. The other thing I want to dig into, 8 kids, Kristi, and you're doing all of this stuff. And I know that's what you coach on, right? And we're going to talk a little bit about that today, but how do you do all that? Is there a specific focus that I'm sure kids are first, but how are you managing all that?
It looks different. There are truly seasons in your life when people always wonder, how do you end up with 8 kids? Right? I've heard it all. I've had people say, don't you have cable? I've had people say the strangest things to me. When I used to, I don't go to the grocery store anymore unless I absolutely have to. I order all my groceries online and have them delivered. In fact, you'll probably hear my dogs freak out during this because the groceries are going to be delivered. I was telling Jennifer that I've got some baking to do and some fun activities that we're going to be participating in today. So the groceries will be delivered. But all of our children are adopted. And so that means that we have bundles of kids, meaning my 3 youngest are 12. But at one point, they were all under 1. And that era of my life looks very different than what it is right now. At 12, they're preteen, sassy, middle school, and it's very different. I don't have to get them dressed. I don't have to feed them, although we make dinner and have dinner as a family every night. Understanding where you're at. When they were little, it was a big Frozen time, right? It was Anna, Elsa, and Olaf. And a lot of times what that looked like was when I came home for the day, I was holding a baby. And I was outnumbered. Luckily, I have an incredible husband who parents with me and cooks and does all these things. So I'm really blessed. But knowing what was the focus between 4 and 8, there was no work happening. It was all kids. It was all consuming. Now they're off doing things that they want to do. So other than making dinner, eating dinner with them, if I needed to, I could dip back into work, say 6 o'clock or so, something like that. And so figuring out what your priority is, but figuring out what season of life you're in and what your kids need from you. Our mornings look very different. I wake them up. I'm not having to get them dressed and get them showered. And so it looks a little bit different now. And so I do have more time for work and more time for projects and more time for some of that stuff. But when they were babies, it was all consuming. And I really learned to say no to a lot of things that just either took from my family or took from my business. It just was a no at that time.
And you coach to that too, right? You're helping them figure out where are they at, what are their goals, what are their priorities, because it's different. Not everybody is the same agent. You're not at the same point. Some people have kids, some don't. So how are you helping your agents on the team or your coaching clients figure out how they're going to manage it all?
Yeah, a lot of it came by trial and error. And a lot of it came back to what are you feeding your mind, right? Like a podcast like yours or a book or something like that. It started for me when I read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That was one of the first like foundational books that I read that was self-help, personal development. And since then, I have become an avid reader and listened to a ton of audiobooks. And so that in that book, Stephen Covey talks about what's called the Eisenhower matrix. And I'll make sure, Jen, to shoot over a link to the Asana blog on the Eisenhower matrix. It's really good. So you can put that in your show notes. But basically, that matrix breaks your time up into 4 quadrants. You have urgency and importance. So it's like an X and a Y axis, and across the top you have urgent and not urgent. You have important and not important. And that creates these quadrants of how you can divide up your time, how you divide up your tasks. And I used that for a long time. So as something comes in to my world, which quadrant does it go? And if it's urgent and important, that means it has a deadline. I need to do that. If I don't complete that, there's going to be a consequence. So a lot of times that's like contract related. So things that come into contracts. Quadrant 2 is it's not urgent, but it's important. And in quadrant 2 is where we find creating a process, training your assistant, putting together a checklist, right? Think about the things that you have to slow down to speed up. And what I've oftentimes see is that people neglect quadrant 2, but it's one of the most productive quadrants. It's just challenging because who wants to slow down to speed up, right? It's not something that we naturally want to do. Quadrant 3 is important, but it's not urgent. So then we get sucked into our email, right? We get sucked into some of this other stuff. A lot of times we have to rethink that as a delegation quadrant, right? If it's important, but it's not urgent, does it have to be done by me? And then quadrant 4 is not urgent and not important. And that really leads me to 3 questions that I ask myself and that I have my clients ask themselves when something comes into your schedule or needs to come into your schedule. We have this urgency. How soon does it matter? Right? Then you have importance. How long does it matter? And then you have significance. And I learned the significance, which is this third layer from Rory Vaden in his book, Procrastinate on Purpose. And that's an incredible book. It's newer in my world. I came across it this year, but I started layering in this significance factor. How significant is this to my business, to my life, to what I'm doing? And that can look like a lot of different things. And that taught me to come back and ask myself 3 questions. The first one is, can I eliminate this? And elimination, and Jennifer, I'm sure you have felt this way and you've probably coached to it too. Elimination can be saying no. It could just be like, this is not something I can do right now, and I'm just going to say no. Elimination can be legitimately getting rid of things. So unsubscribing from newsletters that are no longer relevant to me or that I don't have time for. So when I'm looking at elimination, if it doesn't align with my goals, right? So if it doesn't align with my goals, a task, a commitment, it's a distraction, right? It's not helping me with my objectives. So the first thing is eliminate. The second is if I can't eliminate it, can I automate it? And this is where stats comes in and has, helped so many of my coaching clients. Okay, can I automate this? Is there a piece of technology or a tool that will make this easier for me to in the future? Does it, and oh man, the way that technology and AI is changing real estate, I'm excited. I'm not worried about an AI agent because selling real estate is emotional and an AI agent can get the contract right, I'm sure, but are they going to be able to handle the high level of emotion and intensity that comes with it? So I'm not threatened by AI and the technology. I'm embracing it. And so I look at like, how can I automate this to save me time to be with my family, to make it easier for my clients, all of that. And then that leads to the third question is, okay, if I can't eliminate it and I can't automate it, can I delegate it? And that means if I can delegate it, that's that quadrant 3, right? Get this off. That may require me to go back to quadrant 2 to set up time to train my assistant. And oftentimes this is what I hear, and I hear it a lot with transaction management. They say, I don't need a transaction coordinator. I can just do it myself. It only takes me 5 minutes. It only takes me 10 minutes. But if you think about what that compounds into, so yeah, it's only 10 minutes a week, let's say, but what's 10 minutes times 52 weeks, right? If it took me an hour or 2 to put together a process, that's going to feel really difficult. But then it just saved me 10 minutes times 52 weeks times how many years. And before you know it, either automation or delegation is how you get back your time, whether you want to put that back into your business or you want to put it back into your personal self-care or your family. So those are probably the big tools that I coach to and try to help people say, again, it's not just urgency and importance, it's also the significance to your business and the how you build your business and how long it's going to last, right? Like, how long does this matter?
Yeah. It's funny that you bring that up because I was just talking to someone yesterday that was building out their CRM. And she's getting really frustrated because I just don't feel like it's working. And I said, have you sat down And have you written down any of your processes? You're a successful team lead. Have you sat down and written anything down? No. Then the CRM is not doing anything for you yet because nothing's in there to help you. So you're still doing the exact same thing. You just have all of your contacts in a CRM. That's one step in the right direction, right? As like, can I task you with, over the next 2 weeks when you're probably slow during the holidays, looking through all of your sent emails and your sent text messages? Is there a consistent thing that you send out every single time something happens? Can you just copy that and paste it somewhere, and now you have a template? Yeah, I could do that. Now think about that. If every agent's different, but if you sell 50 homes next year and you did that thing on every single house, and yes, if that's 10 minutes, how much time did that save you? And that's one step. Now go to the next step. You saved another 10 minutes a week. And that's not even hiring out yet. That's just literally doing something, and that's basically free. And you could probably do that in an hour. But we all don't do that because we're probably looking at our emails or we're getting sidetracked by all these other things, and we're just frustrated and we just never do it. So I love that you're coaching to that, because I think it's so important for us to look at the significance of some of these even small tasks and making a huge difference in our year.
That also leads to your client experience, right? That example of, let's say it's like opening escrow, right? Like we know that email is going to contain 90% just copy pastable. You change names, you change dates, you change address, right? There's only a couple things. And imagine what it looks like for your client to have a consistent 5-star experience. And the more time you take, I think it doesn't come natural to agents, and they get frustrated. So yeah, we have some analytical agents that maybe go overboard and they spend all their time on process. They spend all their time on their checklist and not enough time on regeneration. I think it's actually the opposite. A lot of times people are so selling that it's hard for them to slow down, stop and think about, how is it that I do what I do? And then what are the tools that I can put in place? I remember early on in my career when Google came out with the, what are they called? Saved. They're like saved templates inside your, oh my gosh, that was one of the most amazing experiences, because now all of a sudden it was like I had an email template for every contract. I had an email template to introduce them to my lender, an email template to introduce them to my inspector. And I went crazy on like email templates. And at the time we were using Boomtown, and Boomtown also released email templates and text templates. And I think I spent an entire weekend just putting in like 100 different templates. Some were small, some were large, but it saved me an immense amount of time when I was going through and had to do my lead follow-up. I had 4 templates when someone said, I'm just a window shopper. It was like, okay, which one do I want to send? Window shopper 1, window shopper 2, window shopper 3, window shopper 4. And that text template or that email template, I'm a fairly fast typer, but even then, a template is not as a template is way faster than typing it out.
And I like where you're saying the client experience. I think there's sometimes things that you want to do in your business that you don't do because you either don't have a system for it or you're just moving too fast. And so what I often hear is, man, I really wish that on every single transaction I would have sent this thing out, whether it's a gift or I asked for a review or whatever. If you have the checklist for it and you have the email templates for it, you're more likely to actually execute on how you want the transaction to go, rather than just like it coming out of your brain and you're, oh my gosh, I mistyped that, or I missaid that, or I never sent that, is a pretty common one too. And they go back 6 months later and they're like, why do I have no Google reviews? Because you haven't been asking anybody for them, and that's an email template, right? That doesn't even have to be a person you're hiring yet. But then the other side of it is, once you have all those email templates, it's actually easier to hire someone because you have everything that you drafted for yourself that you can now just give to them. And now training those is that much easier because they have every email template that you created over a long weekend. Now they sound exactly like you want them to sound.
And that comes back to that quadrant too. And I encourage you guys to go check out the Eisenhower matrix so you can visually see what I'm talking about. But making sure you have quadrant 2 time in your calendar, I liken it into grocery shopping. So you could all of a sudden go, oh, I need chocolate chips. You're not going to drop everything and go to the store for chocolate chips unless you were doing something that you absolutely needed chocolate chips today. But during the week, it happens. Like my kids are like, hey, mom, I need toothpaste or I need deodorant or all these different things that I'm not going to just stop and drop everything and go get it. I add it to my list. And then what happens is when I order my groceries, I go in and I add it all in. So now you come across these things in your business, put it in a time block, put it in that quadrant 2, and then make sure you have quadrant 2 time. Pull 2-3 hours aside where now you're like, okay, I've got to do these text templates, I got to do these email templates, right? And you just hammer out a bunch of those like tasks that you don't want to stop everything and work on it right now. You put it in a place because it's important, it's just not urgent. So make sure you have important, non-urgent time in your calendar, for sure monthly. If you can swing it, definitely weekly. So that you can start to build the process and the system behind it. And that also takes discipline, Jennifer. The discipline to not take action on something because it's going to detract from your income producing activities, right? Because a lot of times that quadrant 2 is not necessarily income producing. It will help you generate more income in the future because you won't be so carry all over the place. Just put it into that list and then have a time block for important non-urgent stuff that needs to get done.
That's a good one. We all talk about time blocking, but I haven't heard that one often enough. I do it on mine. I call it my stats time. I put a big block on my schedule that just says I'm just working on my business, which is probably similar to that. Otherwise, it just gets pushed off and I'm never focusing on my business. I'm working on everybody else's. So super important. This has been so good. So I'm gonna pivot a little bit and I'm gonna ask, you've been in real estate a while. You work with tons of different agents. What's the funniest thing that's ever happened to you in real estate?
It was in my first year. And this was the first one that came to mind. It was in my first year of selling real estate. So of course you're always like nervous, right? Because you're learning how to use the lockbox and your e-key and all of those things that you're doing. And I was always super, super stressed about making sure that I had permission because I'd heard so many horror stories from other agents. And it just so happened I was out with a family. They had 3 kids and we're seeing homes together. And we get inside this house. It's this 2-story. It's an occupied home. So of course I had permission. And we're doing the downstairs and we're going upstairs and I'm leading the family through the house. And as we get to the top of the stairs to the landing, they're still on the stairs. I'm at the top. I feel like I hear a shower running and I hear voices. And so I just pause right on the landing and I'm looking down the hallway. And out of nowhere, these 2 little naked kids come running out of the bathroom. And they just like deer in the headlights. They're like, Mom? And I hear the mom. She's in the shower. The mom's in the shower. And I've got 2 naked kids. And they're like, someone's here. And I'm just like, let's go. Let's go. Let's get out of here. And I ran downstairs, ushered them out. Wait, we didn't see the rest of the house. I'm like, this is my fault. I'm going to get fired. I'm going to lose my license. I just saw naked kids. And I go back and I look and of course I had permission and I'm showing my clients. I'm like, I have permission to be here. Oh gosh. And I don't know if it's funny or traumatizing or a little bit of both, but I've also used that story specifically as to why it's important to have good agents. I don't know what happened with their agent and the fact that she didn't know that people were going to be entering into her house, right? She was in a vulnerable state, right? Her kids were in a vulnerable state. And I always say, if we don't make our calls, our clients are going to end up with an agent like that who didn't protect and serve their clients, right? And we've all experienced working alongside an agent on the other side that doesn't do a good job, doesn't care, doesn't have a process and things like that. But I use that as fuel. Like I never want my clients to be caught naked in the shower. I will do whatever it takes to communicate and have their best interests at heart.
It's my nightmare on both ends of it, right? Being the agent and being the person has got to be like the worst feeling.
All around, yeah, all around.
Wouldn't you just love to be a fly on the wall of that phone call later on from the owner to their agent?
That's why people lack faith in real estate agents, right? It's like why we rank among untrustworthy professions is because unfortunately, stuff like that happens when I know we're ending. But I got an offer on a listing yesterday that was filled out completely wrong, like completely wrong, using the wrong forms. Like, for instance, they had lead-based paint and the property was built in 2000s. It didn't need lead-based paint, but they had their clients sign it anyways. And clearly their clients didn't even know what they were signing.
Yeah.
But and here's the hard part. It's a great offer. And I think that my clients would accept it. We could not accept it until it is fixed. And I feel bad for that agent because she just doesn't know what she's doing.
Just they're putting in all the different documents and they're not even reading it themselves. And two, educating their clients, or possibly their clients aren't reading what they're signing. Because to me,
They didn't.
if I were reading that, I'd be like, wait a second, I thought this house was built in 2000.
Yeah, there's so many inaccuracies. I couldn't even just do a quick counter to fix it. It needs to be completely redone. And that's again why we put together a process, why we have checklists and things like that, but also that you align yourself in the right education. And if you don't know, you find the person that does and that can help you.
Man, this has been great because it's totally up our alley because the systems and processes and time management. I'm like, we could just keep going. But before we wrap up, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, if they want to send you some referrals, or they just want to follow you, where should we send them?
I am most active on Instagram, and it's just Kristi Jencks. So it's my first and last name on Instagram at Kristi Jencks. And I do have an email newsletter, so you can find that in my link in bio. Every single week, I send an email out that's called Take It and Run. And basically, if you don't have an appointment this week, here's something you can do to get an appointment. Now, take it and run, right? Get an appointment.
Kristi, thanks so much for joining us, and enjoy. Right now it's the week before Christmas, so enjoy your 8 kids for Christmas next week and enjoy all the baking, and then we'll talk again soon.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
Have a good day.